Hello friends, a very good morning to all the students. Am I audible to all? Am I audible to all the students? Okay, fine. Thank you for giving me your response. So friends, you are aware that we are discussing the interesting unit, the practical unit, that is the steam boilers. And friends, in the last session, we have understood the basic definition of the steam boiler. Also, we have understood the definition of the steam boilers according to the Indian boiler regulation, that is according to IBR. Then we have understood the different applications of the steam boilers. Also, we have understood the several classifications of the steam boilers. And finally, we have discussed one of the most important questions, that was the comparison between the fire tube boiler and the water tube boiler. So now friends, let us proceed further with the discussion of the steam boilers. So these are the main contents of my current session. In this session, you will be understanding the basic parts of the steam boilers. Then you will be understanding three most important practically used steam boilers. They are the Cochran boiler, the Lancashire boiler, and the Babcock and the Wilcox boiler. These three boilers are named according to the person who has developed the boiler. And all these three boilers are very important points related to the practical approach or can be considered for your theoretical examination. So firstly, let us start understanding the basic parts of the steam boilers. So friends, let me advise you that today's lecture will be very important for you considering the theoretical examination. So kindly focus on the points I am discussing. Try to understand the concepts so that the technical perspective is perfectly clear in your minds. And if the questions are asked in the examination, then you can attempt those questions, write the perfect answers, and score the full marks. So the first topic of this session, that is the basic parts of the steam boilers. In this topic, I will be discussing all the fundamental parts which are necessary for any type of the steam boiler. And friends, whenever we will be discussing the working of the different boilers, the function of these parts will be repeated again and again. So if the concept of the basic parts are perfectly clear in your minds, then it will be very easy for you to understand the working of the boilers. So the first component of the steam boiler, that is the cylindrical shell. The cylindrical shell is the outer covering of the steam boilers. Because friends, in the last lecture only we have understood that the boiler is a closed pressure vessel. So the covering of the boiler, that is the cylindrical shell. It is the shell in which different parts of the boiler are enclosed and on which the different mountings are fitted. Mountings are those components of the boiler which are necessary for the operation of the boiler as well as for the safety of the boiler. And in my next lecture of basic mechanical engineering, we will be discussing in detail the concept about the boiler mounts. So this is the first component, that is the cylindrical shell. The next component and the important component of the steam boilers, that is grate. The grate is the platform in the furnace on which the fuel is burnt. When the fuel is entered in the furnace, firstly the fuel will be collected on the platform, that is the grate, and on this platform, on the grate, the combustion of the fuel takes place. The next component, that is the furnace or the firebox. If you remember friends, the definition of the steam boiler, we have understood that the water is converted into the steam by the heat energy which is produced by the combustion of the fuel. So the combustion of the fuel takes place inside the furnace. The furnace is also known as the firebox. So it is the chamber formed by the space above the grate and below the boiler shell, in which the combustion of the fuel takes place. This chamber, it is very obvious that it will be containing the hot gases which are produced by the fuel combustion. So remember friends, the furnace is also known as the firebox. The next component, that is the fire hole. So it is the hole or the opening in the furnace through which the fuel is added to the furnace. So it is the opening through which the fuel is added in the furnace. So let me combine these three concepts. Through the fire hole, the fuel will be entering in the furnace. The fuel will be collected on the platform, that is the grate. And on this platform, on this grate, the combustion of the fuel will be started. The fuel will be burnt. And thus the hot gases will be generated by the fuel combustion. Dear students, let me take a pause from my side at this point and ask you the question, are you understanding the basic parts of the steam boilers? Are you getting the concepts? I want your responses in the chat box so that I can proceed further with my discussion. Okay, thank you for sharing me your positive answers, positive responses. Now friends, let us proceed further and understand some more parts of the boilers. The next part, that is the ash pit or the ash pan. If you remember friends, whenever there is the combustion of the fuel, always the byproducts are developed, that is the waste is collected after the combustion. And ash pit or the ash pan is the area in which the ash of the burnt fuel is collected. And during the maintenance, we are removing the ash pit and ash pan and finally cleaning the ash pit as well as the ash pan. So it is the area where the ash of the burnt fuel is collected. The next important component, that is the smoke chamber, also known as the smoke box. The hot gases which are generated in the furnace, After they are giving the heat to the water, now the heat energy of the hot gases has reduced, so there is no use of the hot gases. Hence now they are considered as the flue gases or the waste gases. So it is very necessary to remove the flue gases or the waste gases. So these waste gases are first collected, gathered in the smoke box. Then from the smoke box, they are released to the chimney. And finally, from the chimney, they are released to the atmosphere. So this is how through the smoke chamber, the hot gases are released into the atmosphere. Remember friends, for the concept of the smoke chamber, we need to take the technical term, that is the flue gases or the waste gases. These are those gases which are having a lesser percentage of the heat energy. Next component, that is the manhole, very important part of the boiler. It is a hole which is provided on the boiler shell so that the workman or the boiler operator can go inside the boiler for the inspection purpose, cleaning and the maintenance. So it is very essential to provide the opening in the boiler, the hole in the boiler, so that the workman himself can get entered into the boiler for inspecting the different components of the boiler, for cleaning as well as for the maintenance. Generally considering the mechanical design of the manhole, it is of the oval shape. It is just in context of the mechanical design. The next type of the holes are the hand holes. So these holes are provided on the boiler shell in order to have the easy access for the purpose of cleaning the boiler water tubes as well as some internal parts. So hand holes through which only the hands will be entered of the boiler operator, and by entering the hands, the boiler operator can clean some of the internal parts as well as he can clean the boiler water tubes. And friends, cleaning of the hand holes very important, because to have a maximum heat transfer. Let us proceed further with the next component of the steam boiler, that is the mud box. Generally friends, the water will be having the impurities. So firstly, the impurities from the water needs to be removed. So those impurities which are present in the water after the removal are collected in the mud box. And the mud box is situated at the bottommost part of the boiler shell. The last component, that is the steam collecting pipe. In the textbook, this component is also known as the anti-priming pipe. And in the textbook, you will be also given the figure of the steam collecting pipe. Function is very easy. The steam leaving the boiler always contains some percentage of the water particles. So the steam collecting pipe or the anti-priming pipe is used to remove the water particles contained in the boiler. It is located inside the boiler shell just before the steam outlet. Dear friends, it is very essential to remove the water particles from the developed steam, because if this wet steam is further used in the applications, then it will be reducing the performance of the other components. And it is very essential to remove the dry steam or the superheated steam from the boiler. So in simple, in order to remove the water particles or the moisture content, that is, we are using the steam collecting pipe. Anti-priming pipe, that is simply the another name of the steam collecting pipe. Anti-priming, if you understand the concept of the priming, in case of the pumps, we were removing the impurities, but in this case, we are removing the water particles, the moisture content. Hence, the term is given, that is the anti-priming pipe. For simply understanding, just remember it is the another name of the steam collecting pipe which is used for removing the water particles. Let us now proceed further with the most important topic of this chapter, that is the Cochran boiler. Dear friends, remember it is the most important question which is generally asked in the GTU examination. And for the different types of the boiler, it is compulsory to draw the image of the boiler, to draw the figure of the boiler. So let us understand the Cochran boiler. Some of the characteristics of this boiler are, it is the vertical and the stationary boiler. It is the fire tube boiler. It has more number of the fire tubes. It is internally fired boiler. It has the natural circulation of the water, and in this boiler we can use the solid as well as the liquid fuels. So friends, before proceeding further to the discussion of the Cochran boiler, let me request all the students to take your textbook and open the image of the Cochran boiler. I advise all the students to take your textbook, the basic mechanical engineering, and open the image of the Cochran boiler. And whenever you are ready, just give me the confirmation so that I can proceed further with my discussion. I want the confirmations from the students if you are ready with the figure of the Cochran boiler. Why we are doing this exercise? In order to perfectly understand the concept of the Cochran boiler. Thank you all for giving me the response. So friends, the Cochran boiler, that is the diagram of the Cochran boiler. In order to explain the concept of the Cochran boiler, I am using a very simple image of the Cochran boiler. In your textbook, the image is somewhat same, but only some different components are additionally mentioned. But if you are understanding the technical concept, then any of the diagram you can remember and you can draw in the exam and get the full marks. So friends, you can see from the image, it is a vertical boiler, it is a stationary boiler, and it is a fire tube boiler. The main components, whatever we are observing in the image, all these main components, we have already discussed the functions. For example, the grate, the cylindrical shell, the ash pit, the fire hole, the smoke chamber, the chimney. In the Cochran boiler, considering the design perspective, it is having a hemispherical dome. And in this hemispherical dome, the steam generated will be collected. So now let us start understanding the working of the Cochran boiler. Remember friends, working is very easy. Just focus on the points I am telling you. On the grate, the component of the furnace, the fuel will be collected, supplying the atmospheric air, supplying the ignition medium, the combustion of the fuel will be started. the hot gases will be generated. These hot gases from the furnace through the flue pipe will be entering into the different fire tubes. The hot gases will be entering through the different fire tubes. Surrounding the fire tubes, the water is collected. Surrounding the fire tubes or the smoke tubes, the water is collected. So the heat transfer will be taking place from the fire tube to the water. The water will be increasing the temperature, and finally, because of the more heat transfer, the water will be converted into steam. This steam will be collected on the topmost part of the boiler, that is the hemispherical dome of the boiler, and through the steam stop valve or the steam collecting pipe, the anti-priming pipe, the steam is removed out of the boiler. Now there is no use of the hot gases. So these hot gases are now considered as the flue gases or the waste gases. These waste gases are further collected in the smoke chamber or the smoke box. Then they are transferred to the chimney, and finally the waste gases are released into the atmosphere. So this is the basic working of the Cochran boiler. Dear students, have you understood the working of the Cochran boiler? I want your responses if you have understood the working, or if you are having any doubts in the working, you can ask me in the chat box. If you have understood, kindly give me the confirmation. If you are having any doubts, then kindly share your doubts so that I can clear. Okay, fine. So I am getting some good responses. The students are responding me that they have understood this concept. That is very good from your side. So now friends, if you have perfectly understood the construction working as well as the image, so it is now very easy to understand the advantage and disadvantage. The Cochran boiler is having the low initial cost, installation cost. It requires the less floor area because of the vertical design. It is easy to operate and handle. The transportation of this boiler is also easy, and it can use all the types of the fuels. Some of the disadvantages of this boiler, that is the steam raising capacity is less because of the vertical design. Sometimes the water along with the steam may enter the steam pipe under the heavy loads due to the small steam space. And if we are considering the smaller sizes of the Cochran boiler, its efficiency is poor. So these are some of the theoretical points just related to the applications or the advantages, disadvantages of the Cochran boiler. So friends, whenever you are asked the short note of the Cochran boiler in the examination, first thing is compulsory draw the figure perfectly, label all the components. Then you need to mention the characteristics, and in simple mention the construction and working of the Cochran boiler. And if specified asked in the examination about the advantages and disadvantages, then you need to compulsory write down the advantages and disadvantages of the boiler. So friends, a final question from my side related to the Cochran boiler. Is this boiler perfectly understood by the students? Have you all perfectly understood the Cochran boiler? I want the responses from majority of the students so that I can proceed further with the second type. Okay, thank you very much for the positive answers. Now friends, let us proceed further. Also you can see in your textbook the second type, that is the Lancashire boiler. The characteristics of this boiler includes it is a horizontal and stationary boiler. It is a fire tube boiler. It is a multi-tube boiler, internally fired boiler, natural circulation of the hot gases. It burns only the solid fuels and it is considered as a medium pressure boiler. Again, for better understanding, I am taking a very simple image of the Lancashire boiler. In your textbook also, three images are given. So the top image, the first image which you are observing, that is the front view of the boiler. Attached to the front view, that is the side view of the boiler, and below the front view, that is the top view of the boiler. If asked in the examination, compulsory you need to draw all the three views. After drawing these three views only, you can explain the working of the Lancashire boiler. So let us understand the working. You can see the grate which is provided in the MF, the main flue path. So on the grate which is provided in the furnace, the combustion of the fuel will be started, the hot gases will be generated. The hot gases will be first transferred through the main flue path. So main pipe first it will be transferring, so that is shown by MF in your textbook. Then by the specific design construction, you can see over here a conical shape is provided, a obstruction is provided in order to pass the flue gases into the bottom side. So after passing through the main pipe, the flue gases are transferred to the bottom pipe. You can see in the image the side view. These two circles are the MF which is given in your textbook. From the MF, the flue gases are transferred on the bottom side. So it is shown by the arrow. So this is the path of the BF, that is the bottom flue path. Now from the bottom flue path, the flue gases will be transferred to the side path. That is on the sideways, the flue gases will be directed. And finally, so you can see from the top view, this is the middlemost part, that is the bottom flue path. Then it is transferred on the side. So this is the first side, this is the second side. You can see in the side view as well. And through these three different passes of the hot gases, we are able to transfer more amount of heat to the water which is collected in the drum. Water, after absorbing the heat from the flue gases, will be converted into the steam, and this steam will be removed from the steam stop valve, passing through the anti-priming pipe or the steam collecting pipe. Now friends, from the side flue path, SF path, by means of the damper, operation of the damper, the doors will be opened of the smoke chamber. So by the opening of the damper, now the flue gases through the SF will be collected in the smoke chamber. Through the smoke chamber, they will be passed on to the chimney, and finally from the chimney, they will be transferred, released to the atmosphere. So friends, if you see on the back side of your textbook, one equation or one relation is given in the box. That is very important for the Lancashire boiler, the working of this boiler. That relation is grate. The hot gas is produced in the grate. First they are transferred on the MF, the main path, main pipe. After MF, they are transferred to the BF, the bottom path. Then they are transferred to the side path, that is SF. Then they are transferred to the chimney and finally released to the atmosphere. So friends, the point which is mentioned in your textbook in the box is very important in order to understand the working of the Lancashire boiler. And this Lancashire boiler, in order to have such different passes, it is having a brick lining. So you can see the bricks which are supporting the boiler drum, and also because of the brick lining, we are able to achieve the bottom path as well as the side path. Dear students, let me take a pause from my side and ask you the question. Have you understood the working of the Lancashire boiler? The three paths which are shown in the figure, the MF path, the bottom path and the side path. Is it clear to all? Okay, thank you friends for giving me the good answers in the chat box. Now friends, you are understanding that my discussion I am correlating with the discussion or the top points which are given in your textbook, the images which are given in your textbook, so that you can perfectly understand the technical points. Let us now proceed further and understand some of the advantages and disadvantages of Lancashire boiler. So advantages includes due to the three passes of the flue gases, the heating surface area per unit volume of the boiler is large, a very important advantage. The fluctuations in the load can be easily met by the boiler. Easy to operate, low maintenance cost, easy to clean and inspect. Some of the disadvantages includes maximum working pressure is limited to 6 bar, considering the mechanical design limitations of the design. Due to the brickwork, the supporting brickwork which is provided, the more area is required. And also we have seen the boiler drum, boiler shell is of the horizontal dimensions, horizontal design. So in the horizontal design, it is but obvious it will be requiring more floor area. The furnace is situated inside the tubes, the MF tube. Therefore, the grate area is also restricted. So these are different advantages and disadvantages of the Lancashire boiler. Now friends, let us proceed further and understand the most important question, that is the Babcock and the Wilcox boiler. Remember friends, the Cochran boiler and the Lancashire boiler both were the fire tube boiler. The fire or the hot gases was passing through the tubes and the water was surrounding the tubes. But the Babcock and the Wilcox boiler, that is a water tube boiler. It is a horizontal boiler, a stationary boiler. The important point, it is a water tube boiler. It is a multi-tube boiler. Another important point, it is externally fired boiler. That means the furnace is outside the boiler shell. It has the natural circulation of the water and forced circulation of the air and the hot gases. It burns the solid as well as the liquid fuels, and since it is the water tube boiler, it is a high pressure boiler. Let us now understand the working of the most important boiler, that is the Babcock and the Wilcox boiler. And friends, in the thermal power stations, thermal power plants, we are using this type of the boiler to generate the superheated steam. So in the Rankine cycle, the boiler which you studied, that was of the type of the Babcock and the Wilcox boiler. The main components include the cylindrical boiler drum in which the water will be collected and the topmost portion will be having the steam There will be the partition of the steam and the water. Then we are having the superheater. The inclined water tubes are provided, which are supported by the downtake header and the uptake header. We are having the external furnace, that is the grate you can observe in the image, which is outside the boiler shell. The stroker is provided in order to supply the good amount of the fuel on the grate. Remember friends, the water tubes are inclined in this boiler. The inclination plays a very important role in the working. So now friends, let us understand the working of this boiler. From the boiler shell, the water which is collected, that will be first passed on to the downtake header. From the downtake header, the water will be filled in the inclined tubes. On the grate outside of the boiler, the hot gases will be generated by the combustion of the fuel. These hot gases will be moving in the sinusoidal pattern. You can see the cursor of my pointer. I am showing you the sinusoidal pattern of the path of the flue gases. It is already mentioned in your textbook by the arrows. If you can observe, it is the sinusoidal pattern. So this pattern is developed by the introduction of the baffles which are given in the construction. So the baffles are provided that will be resulting into the sinusoidal pattern of the hot gases. Now friends, as the hot gases are moving in the sinusoidal pattern, they will be transferring their heat energy to the water which is collected in the water tubes. The water, by gaining the heat energy, the temperature will be increasing. So because of the increase in temperature, the density of the water will be reduced. The steam will be generated and this steam will finally be removed from the uptake header. And then it will be transferred on the above side of the cylindrical drum. Moving further, if the superheated steam is required, then that steam is further transferred to this section, that is superheater. In the superheater, again, the steam will be heated, the temperature will be increased by the hot gases, and now the superheated steam will be removed from the boiler. The hot gases, after transferring their heat energy to the water, now they are considered as the waste gases. There is no use of the waste gases, though they are passed on to the stack damper, finally collected to the smoke chamber. Through the chimney, they are released into the atmosphere. The clean outdoors, which you can see in the image, they are the hand holes through which the hands of the operator will be entered for cleaning the water tubes. So for cleaning the water tubes, the hand holes are provided. So this is the simple working of the Babcock and the Wilcox boiler. Now let us understand some of the advantages and disadvantages. It is used for generating the steam at high pressure. The parts are accessible for cleaning. It gives a given output in the less space. Fuel is completely burned. Some of the disadvantages: less suitable for impure and sedimentary water. Water treatment is essential. Maintenance cost is higher and careful attention is required for the water level. So friends, with this, I am concluding this session from my side. Thanks for watching the current session. Have a nice day. I hope you have understood perfectly the three different types of the boiler.